Hello, my name is Monica Knuckles, and I'd like to welcome you to Digital Learning Media, where we'll learn about emerging educational technologies for the 21st century learner, educator, and global citizen. In this episode, Podcasting in Education, we'll learn about a hot trend in education that's been trending in the business, education, entertainment, and social media fronts for quite some time. The objectives of this learning resource are 1. To introduce you to podcasting as a technology with productive implications for teaching and learning. 2. To provide knowledge of the ways podcasting is being used in both K through 12 and higher education. 3. To prompt students and educators to consider ways to use podcasting in their own disciplines. And 4. To highlight tools, methods, and resources for producing and learning more about podcasting. In the next 4 segments, we'll focus on achieving those objectives. The first of which is, what is a podcast and why should I care? 2, podcasting in education. 3, how to podcast. And 4, implications for teaching and learning with podcasts. Keep an eye and an ear out for these cues. They signal important points for the assessment of your understanding of the content following the completion of this learning resource. I'm sure many of you have heard of podcasts, especially since Edison Research's survey revealed that 15% of Americans listen to podcasts weekly. Podcasts have been around for 10 years, entering the mainstream with the original iPod. The name is actually an amalgamation of the name of the Apple device and the word broadcasting. And that's what podcasts are all about. Broadcasting content anywhere, anytime. In geek speak, a podcast is a digital audio file, usually an MP3 or ACC, made available for download on the internet through an RS 2.0 feed. The web address of the media file is contained in the enclosure tag of an item in the XML file. At its simplest, podcasts are audio recordings made available on the internet. Podcasts are generally serial, like a radio show with weekly installments, and they are subscription-based, so RSS feeds can tell your computer which installment to download for your listening. And why should you care about podcasts? Well, as an educator or a student, you should be aware of podcasts' importance as an effective teaching and learning medium. If you're new to podcasting, visit this resource link to check out some of the top picks in news, entertainment, and educational podcasts. Podcast use is increasing in popularity in education because they are a simple to produce and very inexpensive mode of content delivery. In K through 12, high school history students record reports on Chinese dynasties. First graders narrate paragraphs about their summer vacation, and fourth grade classes produce weekly news bulletins, all while principals record their communications to parents and students in podcasts. Listen to this excerpt from the third graders of Willowdale Elementary in Omaha, Nebraska.
Welcome to Radio Willow Web Podcast for Kids by Kids. I am Gabby and I will be your host for this podcast. Third graders from Willowdale Elementary have put together this podcast about Native American Day. Native American Day focuses on the traditions, culture, and background of Native Americans. Native Americans, also known as American Indians, are members of the tribes of people who were here when Europeans arrived long ago. First up is Raven Maddie with Vocabulary Theater.
Thanks, Gabby. I'm Raven, and I have found some interesting words to tell our listeners about. My first word is cheeky.
Impressive, huh? In higher education, research suggests that podcasting should be used to supplement class materials so that students can better understand concepts, theories, and applications that may not have been available during the class. Podcasting can be used as an learning strategy for teaching and learning. Educators with little time or money to attend professional development sessions can do so at their convenience with podcasts. There are some challenges with podcasting. It has limited usefulness for the hearing impaired, and two-way interaction or audience participation is not a design feature as yet. In addition, voice quality, intonation, and sound effects may not be of the same quality as those of a professional broadcast. Driving the appeal of podcasting are the ease of creating, distributing, and downloading content from the internet. Even if you're a newbie to podcasting or educational technology itself, the process of creating a podcast is easier than ever today. There are plenty of free tutorials, technology forums, and YouTube how-to videos available on the web with a quick Google search. The basic steps for creating a podcast are record, publish, and share. And the hardware can be as minimal as your PC, laptop, tablet, or telephone. There are also many open source and free applications that pretty much take the fuss and expense out of it for you. I'm going to discuss two options that are relatively stress-free. For step 1, recording, Audacity is a free audio editing and recording program that's available for Windows, Mac, Linux, and other platforms. I use it often and find the learning curve very small and the interface is visually intuitive. You can get it at audacityteam.org. You'll open a new project, use your computer's mic or a better sound quality attached mic, click the record button, and record your session. Audacity allows you to add additional tracks for background music and sound effects. When you're done, you'll mix the tracks down to one MP3 file for step 2, publishing to the internet. You can use online platforms for publishing your podcast. If you have a blog for your class, you can publish it there. You can also submit it to public podcast directory services such as iTunes Music Store, podcast.net, ourmedia.org, Podcast Alley, or Podcast Pickle. The second option I recommend to create and publish a podcast is to use either of two very noteworthy online platforms, Blog Talk Radio and AudioPow. Let's say you don't have a mic or you need to podcast on a field trip. You simply dial a toll-free number and record a podcast anywhere, anytime, using only your telephone. It's free and very easy to get started. The final step is sharing your podcast. You want your parents, your students, your audience to know where to find your podcast online. This can be done through providing a podcast link, which is the URL of the page where it is hosted, or through creating an RSS feed, which will let users subscribe to your podcast. FeedBurner, a part of Google, is a popular and free RSS feed. Check this link to learn more on exactly what feeds are and how to set them up. So now that we've had a peek under the hood of podcasting, we'll learn in the final segment about some of the implications podcasting has for education. Podcasting affords students the chance to use their technology-based entertainment systems and devices, iPads, MP3 players, in educational settings. Being familiar with the underlying podcasting technology expands the educational options in a non-threatening and easily accessible manner. For example, podcasting allows lectures or other course content to be made available to students if they miss class. Podcasting can provide access to experts through interviews. Podcasting is not limited to content delivered to the students, as they can create their own podcasts in line with the shifting paradigms of learners becoming producers and creators rather than merely consumers. Podcasting can allow an instructor to capture fundamental topics for review while devoting face to face time for more discussion, student led instruction, and other innovative activities. Research reveals that though not the optimal choice for formal assessment, as the grading can be subjective, they see podcasts as an important self assessment tool for students in developing concepts and ideas. Podcasting can serve as formative assessment as well as offer the opportunity for learners to demonstrate their knowledge through the creation of podcasts on a concept or the very ability to create the podcast itself. Podcasts provide educators a means to bring the mountain to Muhammad, meeting today's students where they live, on the internet and on their entertainment media devices. Content delivery options, capture and retrieval capabilities, and anytime, anywhere learning are also implications for the overarching principles of teaching and learning with podcasts. No single technology holds the keys to the kingdom, but the evolution of podcasts seems on course for creating audio experiences that are both entertaining and productive for education. Well, we've come to the close of this introduction to podcasting in education. Complete the brief assessment to check your understanding of what you've learned. Good luck to you in all your learning endeavors.